Hello world, Stephen Michael Zach here, and today we are taking a look at the GVM. This is their SD300C. Now, full disclosure here. I know you've been seeing a lot of GVM comparisons to Amaran and Aputure all over the internet, and that is because GVM contacted a whole bunch of people to make these comparison videos. And they did contact me, but I did turn them down, and here's why. I'm going to be completely transparent here. They asked me not to say anything negative. They said, we're giving you the product, only, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, only say positive things, avoid saying anything negative. And I said, no, thank you. Because when you're making a comparison video, you have to be able to point out similarities and differences, where something fails, where something succeeds versus the other one. So with that said, I did buy this with my own money, and these are going to be my own brutal and honest opinions as always. So let's take a look at what comes inside the case. My own brutal and honest opinions as always. This is new to me. Before we look inside the case, I do want to say that this really isn't a fair comparison. The GVM is, and you will hear me say this throughout the video. The GVM is more of a professional work light, something you take on set, whereas the Amaran 300C is a YouTube light. It is a content creator light. So it's really, really unfair to compare the two. I will say that I would compare this more to the 300X or the new ADC that just came out, or Aputure's more pro line. So I will kind of sort of briefly talk about that later on in the video, but it is unfair to compare the two. So let's talk about the GVM here, and let's take a look at the case. You have a handle, very indicative, case very indicative of the Amaran cases. One thing I will say is missing is I do not like the fact that this doesn't have any rubberized feet at the bottom to protect the case in case I put it on the ground. The zipper feels super strong. There is no pocket at the top here. Instead, you get this little divider. We'll talk about that later. You get a very nice, very long silicone power plug here, which I like. You get the power brick with a V-mount battery, which is fantastic, but again, you're stuck with a PVC, some kind of like Nutrex connector or like proprietary connector with this very cheap, feels very breakable button on the top. Your instructions and warranty. Got to pull this out, you got to pull more padding out, and then inside you have the light, and again, it's dovetailed in here, so getting this out is a bit of a pain. So it's very bit of a pain. You have to kind of pull it out at an angle. You get this with a cup. There's the light, and you get a dish and some very nice protection here, and you get all this very, very, very loose Velcro, which I'll probably add some Velcro to keep this in because I do not like the fact that this stuff just comes out. This should be Velcroed in. Okay, so let's talk build quality. This thing is made of solid metal and some solid pieces of plastic. Over on the side here, you do have one of the cheap GVM knobs. They're okay. I love the fact that you are seeing the power bricks with the V-mounts installed to them. I think that's fantastic. And you also have a place to put the V-mounts. No complaints there. I love the fact that they're now putting them on the yoke. I think that's fantastic. This thing has nice ventilation. You do get a very, very, very weak Bowens mount up front here. Let's go ahead and attach this. As you see, there's a lot of place. If you're going to have this on something that's going to move like a vehicle, like a follow car or whatever, you're going to hear rattling. So not the best locking mechanism. I do like the fact that it's up front, but I think it could be stronger. Again, you do get multiple mounting points here. You get two double knobs here, and I am not a fan of that because you have to unlock both of them. You also have a very weird spring sound, which I do not like. It does not instill confidence. And of course, yes, this does have Rosetta teeth. It has teeth instead of being a flat system. So I will have to go in and add washers to this. So because the problem with the teeth is that you can't point this exactly in the right direction that you want. It's going to shift a little bit when you try to tighten this up. So there's a trick. I did a video right there where I show you how to do it. I went in with rubber washers. So go in with rubber washers and put that in there, and then you won't have that problem. You'll be able to point this anywhere you want. So it's an inexpensive fix, but I really wish they would stop using rosette systems altogether. They are not helpful. I know they use them to hold up big modifiers, but they're really not helpful. And again, do not like the springy. And I do not like the double knobs. Checking out the front array, it is a circular pattern, so that is fantastic. And again, I will say there is no locking cable here, but you're not going to pull this out, so it's fine. And one thing I will say on this front is I do wish that this mounted the other way. What I might do is it looks like I might be able to remount this. There are screws in here, so it looks like I might be able to remount this. So if I can remount this, I'd like to turn this the other way so that when I click this in, this is not facing forward, it is actually facing back, so I can just go back and hook it up. I will say it is kind of going the wrong way, and I wish it were going the other way. Okay, so this is sort of kind of a Nutrex connector. It is its own kind of, looks like proprietary. I'm not a huge fan of this just rubber sticking up, but let's go ahead. And there's not a satisfying click here, and this release feels very cheap and plasticky. So just to let you know, there is no kind of click to it. It just kind of goes in and it's in. Now you do get a hard switch here, which is fantastic. Let's go ahead and fire that up. You get a beautiful, beautiful screen. GVM did a great job. Let's go into CCT and let's lower this all the way down. You go from 0% all the way up to 100%, and you go in increments of 1, which is fantastic. And you go from 2000 Kelvin all the way up to 10,000 Kelvin. We'll go to, and this goes up by 50s, and we'll go to 39K because that's what we shoot in here. And let's go ahead and hit the mode button here, and we get all our modes. We got our CCT, our HSI, the RGB, you get gels, you get source match, and you get special effects. So a lot of stuff here. Let's go into the HSI. 240 looks fantastic. Looks pretty blue to me. It might be a little bit purplish, so it might be a little off. We'll measure that later. And let's go hit the back button here. Let's go. You get controls of your reds, greens, and blues, all that, and whites, and all that fun stuff. We'll go back. We'll go into the gels mode. Now, the gels mode is a bit confusing because you do have to use the back mode. Now, you do only get gels in 3200 Kelvin and 5600 Kelvin, and I think that is a huge misstep. We really do need control of gels throughout the entire spectrum of the light. So the fact that it's only relegated to 3200 Kelvin and 5600 Kelvin, I think that is a huge mistake. So hopefully in a firmware update, we could get more control of the gels here, but you're going to use your selector here to figure out what power you want, whether you want 3200 Kelvin or 5600 Kelvin, and then you've got your Roscoe and Lee gels here. We'll click that. Here are all your Roscoe gels. Now you do have to use the back button here. And here are your Lee gels, and there are quite a few here. So there you go. There you have it. Now you have, of course, GVM's patented source matching here, tungsten, HSMI, 6000 HMI, you've got your studio lamps, you've got your sodium vapors, all that good stuff, so you can quickly match a color source, which is always helpful. And let's go into the special effects. And of course, you get lightning, you get loop, you get candle, which we'll look at, bad bulb, TV, paparazzi, firework, pulsing, disco, you get cop car, you get party, you get this a hue loop, you get fireworks, you get fire engine, you get ambulance, and again, I don't know why they put SOS on these things, but there you go, there you have it. Okay, so let's talk about candle here, and I will say on the 5 setting, it is pretty good. It's a little fast for my taste, and yes, you can slow it down, but then it becomes a little too flashy, so I think at 5 is probably the best, maybe 6. And then they have something called random, which I really like. I think the random probably the best if you're shooting. If you're going to do like a big bonfire scene, you can set up a whole bunch of these so that they're lighting faces randomly. I will say that it does go a little bit like, not orange, but it does take out a lot of saturation a little bit on random, but I do like the random setting. I think that is kind of the best setting, either on 5 or on random, is going to be your best bet for candle. But the candle setting is not bad. It is usable. So let's continue to go through, let's hit menu. And of course, we have the output modes. We have our DMX setting, which I'm not going to touch. You can, again, control your dimming curve, which is always nice. You have your Wi-Fi settings, so again, you can control this with the app. You have a studio mode, so yes, you can actually put this in the studio mode and hook this up to a light switch, and when you flip on the light, this will go on. You have frequency settings, so you can control the frequency. I'm not going to mess with that. So if you're using like a high-powered camera or a slow-motion camera, you can adjust for flickering. You do get fan settings in here. You get smart, you get high, and you get silent. So now we're set to silent. And let's go into CCT mode, and let's try to go up to, so as you can see with the silent mode, you are only relegated to, I think, 20%. Okay, so you're only relegated to about 17%. Okay, so when this is in low mode, you only have 15% power. Oh, I got up to 30. Looks like I can kind of push it. If I turn the dial fast, I can get close to 30. I can get up to 20. And that is if I flip the dial really fast. But really, you're only relegated to about 15%. But you can kind of sort of cheat it up to 20 if you spin the dial, or up to 27 if you spin the dial really fast. Up 32. So here we go. We're on silent mode, and I spun the dial really fast, and I got to 32%. I don't know how long that's going to last with the fan off. But there you go. It is possible to actually get up to about 30% here. Let's go back into mode. Let's go back into menu here. Let's go back into the fan setting. Here it is on high, and I'll stick my microphone right there. And here we are in smart mode. And I will say that smart mode is not bad, but it is a little bit noisy, and I did hear this fan actually ramp up after a while when it gets the hotter that it gets. So while smart mode works to help keep it quiet, it still is a little bit loud as far as fan noise goes. And again, something I do not like is the fact that these have Rosetta teeth. Now I do have a video where I show you how to put a washer in there so that you can point this anywhere you want. But again, you know, if I want to point this at a slight increment, this is gonna lock in. It's gonna shift a little bit. So not a huge fan of Rosetta systems there. Now let's do a little comparison between the Amaran and the GVM. Now keep in mind, I did say at the top of this video, it isn't a fair comparison. Yes, they're both colored lights, but this one is made out of plastic, this one is made out of metal. This is for pros, this is for content creators and YouTubers. So another plus to the Amaran light is the fact that you can use something like the power station to power this up. And we can go ahead and just plug this in. And again, it works on a normal XLR cable, which I absolutely love. And we can power this up just by flipping a switch as well. And turning on the power switch should help. And one thing I will say is the controls are much better on the Amaran. I will say the field of view of the screen is pretty crap on the Amaran. Really wish they invested in higher quality screens. But I will say that the buttons are they're just two buttons, and it's so much easier to navigate around the Amaran than it is to navigate around the GVM, which has so many different buttons and gives you all these different button choices. The Amaran is just simpler to navigate, and there is a way with the purchase of an additional power station to actually power the Amaran, whereas the GVM has no V-mountable option whatsoever. So there you go, there you have it. And again, I am using the Gvm'S power thing here. This is made by Gvm'S. This was a little bit cheap. This came in so much cheaper on sale than the Amaran. Again, I'll point to the review of the 300C and the review of this. I'll leave it in the links below. Hey guys, Future Steven here, and I will say that for some reason the footage got lost when I was transferring it from the card to the computer, so I don't have the 5600 Kelvin test. I will say that it did come in about a 0.6 green, so I did go to plus 19, and that pretty much corrected it. And I think we had a delta UV of, I think it was negative 0.0010. So all in all, not bad. And now, back to the review. With 3200 Kelvin, we're at 3116, and this is pretty smack on. So 3200 Kelvin is pretty accurate. You have a DUV of negative 0.0008, which is pretty good. TLCI of 98, so not bad at all. You are pretty accurate as far as the tungsten is concerned. With the daylight, you will need to correct about 18, 19, 20-ish, and you will have a little bit of the DUV over 0.0010. So not all in all, not bad, fairly color accurate, pretty rock solid. Okay, so let's talk pros and cons, and let's start off as always with the cons. This thing has a very loud fan. Even on smart, it does ramp up and is very loud and noticeable. And unfortunately, that is going to affect if you're recording sound. If this thing is outside, it's not near a microphone, it should be okay. But even in the smart mode, after a while, it got pretty loud. So that is the first negative there. The second negative is, let's check out this menu system here. The second negative is the fact that you do get a lot of buttons, but it does get very confusing. I did have a hard time when I had this in gels mode figuring out how to navigate back to the gels mode. You do actually have to use this back button for several things, so there is a very large learning curve. Next, let's talk about the wire. It is cheap PVC, and it is this weird connection here. It almost looks like exposed wires, but there's no satisfying click or anything to know that it's in. And you have this very weak, very cheap button here that is does not feel like it's going to last. It feels like this could possibly break off, so not great there. And as far as the DMX testing and all that, I didn't really test it. And again, the special effects are there. They are usable. We'll talk what I like about and what I don't like later on. This does have all the bells and whistles and everything you would expect it to have. Now, let's talk about this double mount. I absolutely hate this. It has these Rosetta teeth, which are already somewhat starting to come apart. Now, I do have a video, and I'll put it in the notes below, of how to take a rubber washer and put it in here so that you can point this in any direction that you want. But it is a Rosetta system. I do not like those. And I really don't like the double knob system here. I think that's a pain in the butt. I would rather, like on the Amaran, have one single lever that I can flip and maneuver. So it is not great there. And also, this does make a very weird springy noise when I tilt it, and it is not 360 because the handle does end up blocking it. So you can't spin it 360. It's got this weird, cheap, like springy noise. I don't know what that is. And you can't point this exactly where you want it. Again, there's a fix for that, but that's more money I have to spend. Next, let's talk about power options, and there really aren't any. You are stuck using just the brick. That's how they're saving costs. There is no way to V-mount power this that I know of because of the kind of connection that this is. So there you go. There you have it. Whereas at least with the Amaran, you can buy a power station. You have to get the KMTV, the one made by Amaran, and power it off 2 V-mount batteries. This is wall plug only. Next, let's talk about the dish. The connection is okay. If you're going to put this on a moving vehicle, the dish is going to rattle, and this is pretty weak. It's fine, it's functional, but it doesn't instill confidence. I could probably, if I torque this hard enough, I probably could rip this right off. I'm not going to try, but there you go, there you have it. And finally, I would have loved to have been able to remove this and flip it around, because while this does clip in, what would have been more helpful is if the part that plugs into the camera were actually in the back, and I could just plug it right in and have less cord. Because right now, this is a lot of cord hanging out. And then just have the power cord hanging off the front. That would have been a heck of a lot better. So I'm going to see if I can maybe get in there. It doesn't look like I can, but maybe I can get in there and unscrew it and just flip the mount, just to kind of cut down on all the wires. Okay, so let's talk about the operating system itself. It is fine. It has all the bells and whistles you could possibly want. I will say that the gels mode was quite confusing. You do have to utilize the back button in order to pick whether you want Lee or Roscoe gels. And again, you are only, with the gels mode, you are only stuck at 3200 Kelvin and 5600 Kelvin. And that is a huge mistake because we shoot 39 Kelvin here in the studio, or say I want to use 6500 Kelvin or 4400 Kelvin to match a light source in an office. With the gels, I cannot do that. You are stuck to 32 and 56, which is incredibly limiting, and that is a huge negative. Another negative is the fact that this thing is quite heavy. Like I said, you cannot really compare this to the Amaran 300C. That is a content creator light that is made out of plastic. This can be more, this is more in line with the 300X by Aputure, or or their new C80, or if they're going to come out with a 100. This is more in line with that. So you really can't compare the two. One's a content creator light, and the other is a pro studio light. And finally, the last negative is this case. This case is very interesting. I do not like the loose padding here. I'm going to put Velcro on here and Velcro this in. And then once I put everything back in here, and I'll show you another thing I don't like is the fact how this goes back in. The fact that, yes, you do get this to protect it, which is great, and you slide this in here like so. But then when you want to put this in, you have to kind of sort of guide this in through the hole like so and drop it in like that. And again, these things have a tendency to slide on you, and you have to get this down exactly right. And then you put the cover on here, and then you've got this little piece here. I would get rid of this. This is just to separate the power brick and the cord. You do not need this. It is in the way. You have to unvelcro it every time you go in here. I would just throw it out, get rid of it, put it in a drawer and forget about it. And then you can put your cord in here, and then when you roll this up, you can kind of drop this in here and just keep this area open, and that'll be fine. You really do not need this. This is completely unnecessary. Now, from the cons to the pros, this thing is pretty good. Again, most of the lights that you're gonna see, most of the new stuff coming out, it is going to be usable. Now let's talk about what I like on this unit. I do like the fact that it has all the bells and whistles. It has the DMX, it has the Wi-Fi, it has the studio mode, it has decent special effects, it has a mode where you can match other older light sources. It has, you know, your RGB control, it has your HSI control. You do get gels, be it a little bit confusing in the menu, and the fact that you're only stuck at 3200 Kelvin and 5600 Kelvin. I think that is a mistake. Hopefully they can fix that in a firmware to give you more options when it comes to gels, but you do get a nice assortment of Lee gels and Roscoe gels. You can control the brightness, which is fantastic. And again, you get lots of controls in the special effects. You can control speed, you can control brightness, you can control color. That's a plus. I do think on 5, this thing looks the best as far as the candle fire effect. You can switch it to random, but every so often it flashes just a little bit too fast. So the random mode does need a little bit of work, but set this to 5, it should be fine. It should be serviceable. And all in all, great build quality, pretty rock solid. You know, it does come with a fairly nice case. So if you're looking to save some money and you want something that you can kind of push with plus minus green to be a little bit more accurate and a little bit more along the planking curve, then this is a pretty good bargain. Now, would I compare this to the Amaran? And I would say no. And here's the reason why you can't make this comparison. This is a pro studio light. This is a professional light that you take on your job. The Amaran light, which I know people do take on the job, it is made of plastic. It is a YouTube studio. It is a content creator. It is an independent filmmaker light. It is not something that can be compared to this, because this can be compared more toward the Aputure 300X or the new C80s or whatever new pro light they're putting out. This is more on par with that, and that's why I would not compare the two. I will say that the Amaran is far easier to use. The 300C is easier to use. You can buy a power bank to use V-mount batteries. It is a standard XLR cable that you use in audio, so if you have audio, you should have one of those. And the controls are easier. Yes, you don't have DMX, you don't have the bells and whistles, but again, for content creators, we just need something that's color accurate and easy to use and quick to set up. But if you're looking for something where you want to get a little bit more in depth with the controls, I would say yes, you can do that on the GVM. And they absolutely have listened to the users especially we know by giving us a place to hook on the power bank. I think that's a great addition. All in all, pretty good. There are some fixes, some adjustments I'll need to make on my own to get this pointing in the way that I want. But not bad, but I would not compare the two. They are two separate tools for two separate jobs. Again, I would compare this more with the 300X, or if Aputure ever makes a 300C, that's what this would be compared to. So that's it. Those are my thoughts, but I want to know yours. So leave your questions and comments in the notes below. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to mash that bell button to be notified when we drop a brand new video. And feel free to use links below as it helps out the channel. I'm Stephen Michael Zach, and this is new to me.